I would like to eat dinner.
Let's see if it works this evening.
Yeah, it says we're live. I haven't seen it come on just yet, but it says we are live. There it is. Here it comes.
There we are. We are live.
All right.
Advertisement.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
For a minute and 32 seconds, and they're shaving cheese. So that's pretty cool.
Sweet.
You got a whole 0.01 cents, sir.
I've seen a bunch of cheese this past week.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure.
All right. Well, hello, Gun Nation. I guess it is going to work this evening. How are you gentlemen doing?
Great.
Yeah, doing all right. It's nice to be live.
Yeah.
We were pretty bummed about last night. Had a guest and everything. It was a little bit embarrassing all the way around, and everybody was so nice to stick with it for about 15 or 20 minutes. And I finally said, "God, have your night back, please." So
yeah, unfortunately, you can't control media, especially when it's not yours. So
now, was it a YouTube thing or was it a your thing?
No, from what I understand, Hangouts was actually having a problem.
Really?
So, yeah, it wasn't just me. Some other channels, including Hank Strange, they were having problems getting on. So,
Gotcha.
Well, it is wonderful to be back and have the great family there in the chat room. Thank you, everyone, and hello, everyone. Yes, I survived. So, but yeah, this evening we're going to be talking about some guns. I'll get into the trip, on my own time. This is our time, so I don't really want to, clog it up with that. But anything fun and exciting while I was gone that, just shocked the gun world?
No, I don't think so. Nothing terribly exciting. Everything has been relatively status quo. Yeah, I can't think of anything. 17?
No, there's nothing. I mean, I got my hands on the Steyr MF, 2, but that's not really shocking the gun world. That was just shocking my world. But other than that, I don't think they've come out with anything new. Nothing right now. Trying to think if there's anything in the laws that have been going on. I don't think so. Nothing. Although, if you guys do get a chance, you really should watch the speech that Jon Stewart gave Congress about the 9/11 first responder bill that they are not signing at this point.
Okay.
So
I was watching just a minute ago and I thought it went through, or they were going to pass it.
Well, that was of yesterday. They still did not decide on what they wanted to do. So today I haven't looked at the news. Maybe they did it today, but it was a great speech. It was absolutely probably one of the best things that I've heard come out of the halls of Congress in quite a while. So definitely check it.
And there you go. Another non-politician telling politicians what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, but yeah, did you now on that Steyr? I saw your picture on Instagram. Did they send that to you, or
they did send it to me for test and evaluation only? It has to go back. Hopefully not too soon because I haven't gotten it yet because it's going to take forever. But so once I get it, I'm gonna actually milk that gun for everything it's worth.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really nice. I was telling KS, I think on our last chat that it's just basically from the slide up or the slide, it seems like it's the same thing, but the frame and everything else is redesigned, and they did a great job with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So no, and I do want to address this. I do not wear skinny jeans, and I did not over there either. So Harry started that shit. So now everybody's saying it. So
there's nothing wrong with skinny jeans if you can fit in them.
Yeah, no, but I saw some guys wearing some shit that shouldn't be wearing. So
that's the Euro.
I saw a lot of schmediums. So, but yeah. So I was just gonna, and we've had a ton of questions. While I was on the chat or in the chat room earlier, and a lot of people were talking about red dots and stuff like that. Have any of y'all's opinion regarding red dots or anything like that changed, or y'all wanting to check them out even more? I know that KS has one that he's been kind of testing. Have you thought about it anymore, 1776, or are you kind of sticking with the irons, like you said?
For me, I'm not going to really go to the red dot at this point, but it has more to do with me and my hands than anything else.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't have the steadiest of hands, which I'm sure all of you are aware of. And all the nice kind comments I get constantly on my videos, but I personally don't like them. And it isn't anything against the dot itself. It's just that, I'm happy shooting the way I shoot for now. I mean, if things change eventually, then yes, but right now I'm okay. I'm okay with what I got.
Yeah. But you, KS?
Yeah, no, I think they're fun. I certainly see an application with them. Not something that I employ, at least from a carry perspective or home defense perspective, at this point in time, and largely because I just don't work enough with them. I'm testing probably a different gun just about every week, and most of them do not take red dots. And so, and even if they did, I probably wouldn't have the red dot that would go on it or whatever. So it's not practical to try and focus on something like that for true application, and not be able to spend enough time with it. There's not enough in the time and the budget to be able to really work with it adequately to get as comfortable as I want. When most of the time, I mean, I was shooting the APX carry last week, and the week before that, it was the Staccato P, and it's every week is something completely different. It'll be the Wilson Combat Beretta coming up this week. I need to put some rounds through it, and so is just not enough time. So I like them. I like what their use is for, and I'm a believer in them, but for my application, it's nothing more than just for fun and just to try out and experiment with.
Yeah. Well, I'll go ahead and let it out of the bag if y'all haven't already caught on already, but I'm pretty much going 100% red dot. Even on carry guns, I'm working up to it, and I want to be more comfortable with it before I commit, but that's pretty much what I'm doing. I'm shooting carry optics from now on, and they're just going to be part of what's going on. So I'll go ahead and let it out of the bag now, but that's what I'm doing. So, I think that I had part of the issue for me personally was just with the Glock angle, but now that I've got it on the P10F, I haven't had any issues with it. Actually, I've been getting more used to it. So I pretty much told myself that's what I'm going to do. So
now, is there a particular reason why you're going strictly to the red dot? Is it the eyes? Is it just a preference? Why is that?
Well, partly because of the eyes, and it's not that I'm like blind or anything. I actually have great, my length vision or my distance vision is actually perfect. But up close, it's a little different. But what I'm seeing or what I'm finding out that is working for me is, here's the way I look at it. If I want to shoot, holes inside of holes, which I'm not that kind of shooter anyway, but if I want to attempt to do that, iron sights have always been really good for me, and I've, had really good accuracy with them. But, more, I guess, with the USPSA gaming kind of thing, hitting the A zones and stuff like that, red dots are sufficient. But then I'm looking at it this way, rather than, when you're shooting red dots, you don't look at the red dot. You look at your target and just put your dot over the target. So, and for like self-defense, I find it myself a lot quicker when I come out of the holster and then I just go to the target. I actually find it quicker because you don't have to even acquire sights. I mean, as far as match up a front sight with a rear sight and, get the even window or the even air on each side, you just let it rip. And I've been coming out of the holster and going to that, trying it that way, and then trying irons. And I find myself a little quicker with the dot. So, and I just think that's going to become faster and faster. So that's what I'm experiencing right now. And, I got this little baby, finally got it. I pre-ordered it, and this is the SRO. So this is even a bigger window. So I'm kind of excited about trying this thing out. So, and I've got another dot on the way. So I've pretty much told myself that that's what I'm going to do. So, and we're going to, experiment with it and see how it goes. I don't see how it's going to get any worse. I think it's only going to get better for me with the dots, but that's just the decision I've made. Now I can still shoot irons, but, I'm going to be dominantly red dot. That's what I'm going to try to do.
Nice. Well, it's exciting that we're seeing more offerings in various sizes that either are red dot compatible or they've already got the red dot on them. Yeah. More companies are coming out with them. They're advancing, just like that SRO that you have. So I don't think it's slowing down anytime soon. And eventually 17 and I will probably be behind the times a little bit. I mean, and it's funny, Harry made a comment about they help you diagnose your problems as a shooter. I think there's some truth to that for sure. However, I guess I'm a believer and I suppose it's all about what you choose to use. If you're using a red dot, it would help you diagnose using a red dot and that sort of thing. I mean, I'm an iron shooter, and so I don't know if a red dot would help me diagnose issues I have as an iron shooter if I tried a red dot and then went back to the irons. I don't know if there's a correlation there, and I could be totally wrong. I'm not an expert. I would be interested to talk with some experts about that and see what their thoughts are, because I don't think the two translate to each other. It's two different styles. You know, you have one plane versus two planes and variable distances. And so I don't know. I think that would be an interesting study, if nothing else, to see how that could potentially correlate with each other.
Right. Well, what I found with the dot is even in dry fire, you know, if you have a bad trigger press or you put too much finger in it or you hook your trigger, you know, as you pull it, you hook it, and some people are going to pull it low left. You know, if you do that with the dot, your dot, rather than being stationary and you pull the trigger, it'll actually dive. So it will show you what you're doing. You know, so if you're talking about having a really steady grip, or if you're not applying enough left hand and you're letting your right hand dominate and, you know, drive the gun, that'll actually, the dot will show you that too. So, and I'm not a dot expert by any means. I'm not, and I don't ever claim to be. But I have found for me, you know, just in dry fire and even some live fire, that it's good for that. You know, and I know that 17 made it, you know, he was saying his hands shake and things like that. And there's people with, you know, hand issues and stuff like that. But my feeling is this, you know, if your iron sights, you're shooting this, okay, and a red dot at first, maybe you're going to shoot that. You know, you're still going to hit your target. You're still going to, you know, hit the vitals. So I look at it, if you keep practicing with the red dot and you pretty much just lock yourself down on a red dot, you're only going to make that group even tighter, or you're going to get more proficient with it. So that's why I pretty much told myself, you know, that's what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to stick with it, see how it goes. And you know, I've got some other stuff coming, so you know, we're gonna kind of see how this goes. So it's not just going to be on one gun; it's going to be on a lot of guns. So
okay, cool. 17, were you going to say something a minute ago?
I was just going to say, you know, I think it makes sense for people who are involved in competitive shooting to want to go towards that. You know, I mean, we can always debate whether or not it is a necessity for people who carry strictly for self-defense applications. Now, I know people will say, well, it's quick acquisition and all the other stuff, but I mean, in the reality of things, in the grand scheme of things, most people probably will not be able to afford the handgun, afford the red dot, afford the training, afford the ammo to be proficient with it. And for me, you know, I feel like I shoot pretty well with what I'm doing. And, you know, for the most part, if you have to pull that gun, you know, again, we could debate this again for a very long time. Are you really even looking at the dot? Are you even really looking at the sights? Or are you just pulling the trigger?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to be talked about if you're going to go that route. I think if you're using multiple platforms for handguns, I think that's a huge negative too, because we can sit here and say a dot is a dot is a dot, but grip angle, you know, how the gun sits in your hand and all these other things also apply to that idea. In my opinion, again, I'm not an expert either, but I would think you'd have more issues switching from platform to platform than if you stuck with just, like, let's say, you know, your P10 or Glock or something, and you knew that was going to be your always carry, and that's what you're going to be practicing with. So, I mean, there's a lot to consider with that. It's a huge investment. You know, for me, it's just not a practical investment at this point for me. Now, if my eyes start going bad, yeah, I would definitely look into it. I mean, I have a red dot. I have it. It's in my safe, but I do not have any optic ready handguns any longer. So for me, it's just not in the cards right now. Not saying it won't be in the future, but I feel very happy shooting what I'm shooting and how I'm shooting it. So
yeah.
The Armsman makes a really good point here. He says, I think it adds bulk to a compact EDC. I like red dots for range and distance shooting, but to carry, I can't do it. I rather rely on steel sights than risking a malfunction from something battery operated.
And that's a good point also, because in a perfect situation, you're going to be able to pull the red dot and you're going to have a clear lens on there. But let's be honest, if you're carrying that gun and you're in you know, whatever conditions, sandy conditions, dirty conditions, pocket lint conditions, you may not have that clear lens. And I think that's also something to consider, you know. But again, you do whatever you guys want to do, man. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's whatever you feel comfortable with. And, you know, like we've even said this before, up close and personal, I feel that I could point shoot, and I've done it before. I can point shoot 7, 10, even 12 yards and hit a body. I can take out a chest. That's not a big deal. But, so if the red dot did go down, now, but you have to take that fine precision shot and something happens, that's a whole nother ball game. But yeah, if you have, blacked out co-witness sites and stuff like that, that shouldn't be an issue either. And, this is kind of goofy, and I saw it on a meme, but it kind of makes a little bit of sense. There was a red dot, and the guy was like, what do you do when your red dot goes down? So what he did is he took some fingernail polish and actually put it on the window. I wouldn't do that, but he did. And, was shooting it that way. And so he just always knows where his dot would be aligned. But, I know that Aaron Cowan and stuff like that, and those guys that have really shot dots for a long time, they'll actually take that window and they've shot it so much, they don't even have to use sights. They can just look through the window with no red dot, and they can actually make some pretty damn good shots at distance. So, but of course that comes with time and experience. I'm not that guy yet. But that's just what I've decided to do, but like I said, each their own. But when I look at it, like we've even said before, I remember way back when ARs, and AKs, and everybody just had peep sights and had iron sights on them. There was really, everybody was like, oh, red dots will never catch on with ARs. And look, now everybody has a red dot or a scope. So I kind of look at that as even pistols too. It's just going to get more prevalent.
Do you guys think that might be a problem right now, that it's going to become more prevalent? I mean, I don't know if you guys have watched other people shooting at the range.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen guys go to the range who put their targets out, like, all the way to the back, and there's shit on there, like somebody threw like rocks at it or something.
Buckshot, yeah. Or not buckshot, but birdshot.
And I guess my concern would be that, as we see these trends through the gunning world, gun community, there's going to be a lot of people who are doing it just to say, look at me, I have a brand new, RMR or whatever it might be. And they're not going to invest that time to be proficient with what they're doing. And, for me, like, I'm not an expert shot, as you guys know, and as you see on a weekly basis, but more importantly, I'm still working on my grip. I'm still working on the basics, the fundamentals, to try to get even better with shooting that handgun. So I always worry that, like, in the gun community, we tend to go on these trends, and then these trends outrule common sense for a lot of people. If you're if you're going out there and you're using it consistently, and you're going to be training with it crazy amounts of time, or competitively shooting it, then absolutely, 100% go for it. But I really wonder if a lot of people aren't going to be doing that, and now we're putting this tool in people's hands that they're not qualified to use.
Yeah. And I mean, I kind of agree with David Franklin. We can't control everybody. We can't police everybody. We can only kind of police ourselves and know what our capabilities are. But, how you were saying, yeah, you're going to be shooting it competitively or in competitions and stuff like that. That's kind of the way that I'm thinking. If I'm going to do it competitively and I'm going to get used to it and I'm going to like it, then why would I go back and forth, only do it on weekends competitively, but not do it in real world? So that's kind of the way that I'm thinking about it. If I'm going to dip the toe in, I need to put the whole foot in, either shit or get off the pot. And that's why I've chosen to do what I'm going to do. But
I think that's a good method, a good way of doing it. I mean, your approach is sound, because you're saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to focus on, and it's going to be 100% focus. I think a lot of people, including me, I'm sort of picking on myself a little bit, because I do have a couple of red dots and I enjoy them for what they're worth. One of the reasons why I wouldn't employ them into any of my practical kits, so to speak, is because I'm not doing that 100%. And I don't have that luxury at this point in time. If I didn't have a channel, I may think different, because red dots are kind of cool. And I do enjoy them, and I've had some good experiences with them. But for me, it doesn't make sense to try and do that. If I'm only, 5 or 10% of the time working with them, that doesn't make make much sense for me. So I would not be able to get as proficient as I would want to be, as comfortable as I would want to be. And Harry did make a good point, and you made a good point as well, Big Johnson, about, I do remember shooting red dots, and you can see that dot move a whole lot more as you're taking shots. So I mean, it definitely can highlight some weaknesses of your shooting without question. So I mean, there could be some training value to that perhaps, but I really would have to study it a whole lot more and see how the two could correlate together. But again, if it's not a 100% okay, this is what I'm doing, this is it, and I'm going to get better at it, whether it's training or a lot of range time or a little bit of both. Otherwise, I think, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how all of this unfolds over the next few years, but it doesn't look like it's stopping.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing police departments, military. I mean, even more people are adopting them. So, I mean,
I honestly, even with the police department discussion, I think that's crazy for them to be adopting them, because half those guys don't even go shoot more than once a year.
Yeah,
qualification, they're done.
Well, but you can also look at it another way too. In a dark situation, or if they're having to get in a gunfight, and I mean, and it's somebody spraying them and stuff like that. I mean, a red dot could have more features for them at that particular time than having to really lock down on sights. I don't know. I mean, with whatever they're doing, again, that's not my concern. They're going to train and they're going to be responsible for that. I'm responsible for myself.
Sure.
I since I've been shooting them a lot more, and I mean, I've been putting a ton of rounds through these things, and I've really became, and I'm not saying I'm a pro at it, because I'm not, but I'm becoming more comfortable with it. And it seems to be working out pretty well for me. That's why I pretty much told myself, I'm like, I need to crap or get off the pot, because dabbling with it on the weekends and going to the range and shooting it and practicing it, and then all of a sudden going to another gun, without it's, I want to be able to proficient in both, but I feel that I'm pretty decent with irons. That's why I want to challenge myself to become better with dots. So I'm looking at it as more of a challenge also.
Nothing wrong with that.
So, but I know that we've missed some shooters. I saw them here, or excuse me, some questions. I saw them here a minute ago.
So really quick, what did you guys, I don't know if you guys checked it out, but I'm like having a coughing attack here, but Mr. Guns and Gear posted a video where he talked about, the gun snobbery thing, where people were, I guess, bashing manufacturers that make cheap guns, or I should say, less expensive guns, because that's a play on words. Cheap doesn't necessarily mean bad, or I should say, inexpensive doesn't necessarily mean cheap. And he made some really interesting points on that video, and the reasons why he made it were basically to say that it's kind of dangerous to keep on bashing guns because they're not necessarily the high-end handguns, because it turns people away who might buy that cheap gun just for protection. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think about something like that?
It's funny. I feel like we've said those exact words on a chat or two on there. I mean, how I feel about something like Taurus certainly comes to mind, the G2C, and I've tried to take the stance of looking at the firearm for the firearm itself and not the overall company, because I will freely acknowledge that Taurus has had a sketchy reputation at best, and I'm being nice. But the experience with the G2, not going down that rabbit hole, but I think it's a great point. And I think if you get away from brand favoritism, whatever it is, you might like one, you might like several. I think a lot of us enjoy several a lot. And just look at the firearm for the firearm itself. Killer Coiler, Young Guns, I don't know if he's still in here or not, talking about the Stoger, several people talking about the Stoger, Shooter Industries as well. Some having different experiences with it. It's an inexpensive firearm. I've handled it a little bit, and I actually thought it felt pretty good in the hand. I have no shooting experience, no intimate experience with it, taking it apart or anything like that. But it's another example of where I think some people, when you put out videos like that, inevitably you're going to get people that say, you should have gotten a Glock, or you should have gotten a Beretta, or you should have gotten something else because it's a more well-known brand. It's not going to fall apart. I think that's a little perhaps short-sighted, and I don't mean to insult anyone. Short-sighted in that you might be missing out on actually a pretty cool thing. I've been a little bit blown away by that Taurus. Now, I might eat my words in a few months if it falls apart, and I'll be the first to admit it. But so far, so good, and it's got about 1,000 rounds through it now. It's not the prettiest thing, but it runs, and that you make a great point, 17. It might allow more people, and Mr. Guns and Gear made that point as well. It might allow more people to get into the shooting sports, to get into the enjoyment of it, the camaraderie of it, have something for protection that they can afford, and buy some ammo, and allow them to do the things they need and or want to do. Whereas, the person next to him might be able to afford a Wilson Combat EDC X9. It's no big deal to them, and that's cool too. But it's okay to spend less money and get something that works, and be okay with that.
Yeah. Well, I'll take it a little farther, and I think this is kind of where 17 was going, but it kind of comes down to, people say, oh, the poors, I don't want that gun because that's what the poors have. That sucks. I mean, you should never discredit anyone for what they can afford or what they can't afford or whatever to protect themselves and their families. Because, I've even had people, send me emails and DMs and stuff like that saying, I only have X amount of dollars, what would you recommend? And I'm like, hey, try to find a used Glock, try to find a used Smith & Wesson, something like that. Because if the person can only get a high point, by all means, get a high point. At least you have something, and, of course, test it, run ammo through it. Because if you only have $500, you might be able to get a $400 gun and $100 worth of ammo, or something like that. I mean, so you can practice with it. But yeah, I would never discredit someone for, having a less expensive gun because that's all they can afford.
Yeah. And, just to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about, and a lot of people mentioned in the comments that there are so many great offerings right now that are 300 and under.
Mm-hmm.
We're not even talking like a budget gun of 150. We're saying 3 and under. So, and you're getting quality stuff. So, for example, the M&Ps were available, I think, for something like $279 after a $50 rebate. That's insane.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at Gunbroker right now as you were talking, and like a Canic Elite, which you guys know I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of. But right now there's one on here with 22 hours left, 11 bids, $220.
What is it? What kind of gun?
One of those TP9 SF Elite.
Nice.
So it's like you can definitely get something that is, relatively good quality. I mean, there are things out there. There are the old shields that are going for 2 and change. I mean, there's so many offerings, and I know there were so people saying it, but you guys were absolutely right. It's not like you're going back 20 years where there were no options, where you're either getting a steaming pile of shit or you're getting an awesome handgun. Nowadays, I really don't think that there's any really poorly made handguns, with the exception of a few, of course. But I mean, the Canic gun, yeah, it's a Canic. So if you can get past the political view and stuff, that's a fabulous choice. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And C. Kim hit the nail on the head. He said, on the other hand, budget gun people throw a lot of hate on people with higher priced pistols. And I've been beat up for it. I'm sure y'all have too, where people are like, oh, I can't believe you bought that $1,000 gun. I could have 3 Glocks or whatever, or 3 high points or 4 high points, And I mean, I'm just like, okay, do what you want to do. I'll do what I want to do. I'm not saying you're wrong. So, I mean,
and just not have any $1,000 pistols.
Well, I mean,
But that goes to the point of snobbery, because it does go both ways without question. And that's why I try to look at everything as its own individual thing. Yeah, price does come into the picture a little bit. I always leave it at the very end of the video. I try and make that the very last thing, because I want people to see the gun for what it is, see the features, see what it can do, what it can't do, how it shoots in my not great hands, mine not great shooting skills, but see it for what it is there. At the very end, yeah, okay, this is a $250 gun, or yeah, this is a $3,000 gun, or whatever. But what did you think of the gun in and of itself? Take the price out of the picture. Just, what do you think of the gun? And then look at the price, and if it's something you can afford and you're interested in, great, more power to you. If it's not, there are other options as well. And it's okay to not dig it. Hey, it's not my thing. It's not my price range, or I don't like the look, or whatever. But you're exactly right. I mean, I've seen pretty hateful comments both on things like the Taurus videos. That's a really good one. Or even the Canic videos as well, especially that Elite Combat, because it was expensive and it was a Canic, and boy, that puts people in a tizzy. But then also the EDC X9, which is a beautiful handgun. It's a wonderful gun, but boy, people, those that stayed till the end of the video, you can usually tell, man, I enjoyed this video until the very end, and then you said the price, and they'll say something, and it's like, oh, I mean, I get it, it's cool. It's it's not for you for whatever reason, but it's still a good gun,
Yeah, and that's one reason even in my videos I don't even talk about price, because I figured if they're really interested in it, or if they've been looking at that gun, for one, they probably kind of know the price or the price range. But, and I've had some people say, hey, why don't you talk about the price? And I'm like, it's just a Google away. I mean, you can kind of find out what the price is, because if you quote a price, and I've done that way back when, I would say, hey, here's the price. And then somebody watches the video 2 years later, and they're like, well, I can get one for $350 now. And I'm like, that video's 2 years old, dude. I mean, come on. So
I will talk price if I feel like I got a really good deal on it.
Yeah.
Just so that it lets people know that they're out there. Like, you have to do some legwork. And I mean, I remember a while ago, I got a comment for somebody like bitching at me for, saying, oh, who can afford that gun? It wasn't like you guys know, I don't have really anything high end. But I was like, dude, I looked at it on Gunbroker, and he's like, well, I couldn't find it. I go, that's because it was like 2.5 weeks ago. I mean, you got to put the effort in. It's like anything else. If you're car buying or shopping for anything, you're not going to go and pay what they want you to pay, and you've got to do some hustle, man. You got to hustle a little bit. And sometimes, man, you can find killer deals on solid stuff, especially on the used section. I mean, sometimes you go for the used section, and the only thing it needs is maybe a new spring, and you get a hell of a gun. And sometimes it doesn't need anything.
Yeah, I actually bought a gun. Well, it was a while ago, I guess probably a couple of years ago, and the gun store didn't even know what they should have priced it at. And I mean, I literally stole the gun. When I did my paperwork and ran the hell out of there, because I was just like, holy shit, they're going to look it up on accident while I'm standing here. Because they should have charged $200 more, and they still would have been in the ballpark. But they didn't normally carry that gun, so they had no idea what the hell they were dealing with.
And I am not embarrassed to say I am a bargain hunter, Baldy.
Yeah, hey, nothing wrong with that.
That's
nothing wrong with that.
I'm not gonna do stupid stuff, but well, maybe once in a while. But and one thing that I thought was funny, this Glock 43X was used. I bought it used from a guy, traded him. I didn't even buy it. I traded him. And the best part is that PPS M2 RMSC is now on arms list from the same guy who I traded this for. So
nice. So I'm curious about something. Joker made a comment. It's an interesting comment, and I've seen this multiple times on multiple videos. He says, yeah, but if someone says I can only afford a Taurus, if you spend just a little more, you can have a Shield, which is tried and true, where Taurus, knock on wood, has had issues with QC in the past. And that entire statement is true. Can't deny a single word of it. And again, I've seen it multiple times. However, I will also say, and I'd be curious to know what everybody else thinks of this, that kind of goes back to, I fully acknowledge, yeah, Taurus has had issues in the past, and we're using them as an example. Other companies could fit this as well. But yeah, no one would doubt that at all if you've been in the industry or paying any attention for the last 20 years or so. So that's where I come back to study the gun, the one gun for itself. From what I have studied and read and followed, whether it be reviews or people's comments, all those things, amassed all those stats over the last year or so with the Taurus, the G2C specifically, that's the only one I'm talking about. it has been overwhelmingly glowing. Yes, there have been comments that have said, "Oh, mine blew up first shot." I try to eliminate 10% on both sides, because you're going to get the extremes on both sides that could be true, might not be true, could be telling stories. Right? It's like those tests. When you take those tests, you chop the worst and the best off, and you see what the average is, and the average sits about 90% good. And so that to me is a very telling story. And so, do you continue to say X gun is terrible because X brand has had a bad history, or do you eventually say X brand has had a bad history, but maybe they're doing something different and it's getting better? Now, time will tell. Obviously, it needs to go. We need to give it more time, I think. But when do you put the past in the past and look at the now? When does that happen?
Yeah, and I mean, with any gun, I mean, they're all, unless you're getting a hand-built pistol, and those can even have problems. But, you can have a mechanical failure, you can have a mem part fail, you can have a spring break. I mean, there's stuff that happens. And if you start seeing it readily through the whole line, then something's wrong. But, I mean, like I've had the PO7, PO9s, and I've put a ton of rounds through all four of them. I got two PO7s and two PO9s. I haven't had one spring break. But I've had people, and some of them are even in this chat, where they were like, "Hey, I put 300 rounds and my trigger spring broke," or, something like that. So, I mean, anything can happen, and hell, SIG, I had a 226 spring break, or, the trigger wouldn't, it was just dead trigger. And they fixed it, but anything can break. So, just like a car, I mean, you don't want your gun to go down, but it can. You don't want your car to break, but it can. So I don't know. And you're exactly right, KS. When you see these people who are like, "Oh, mine broke 200 rounds through it," you don't even know if that person, I mean, I get a bunch of that crap on my channel too. And you're like, "Yeah, dude, I don't even think you have that gun." So, and you look at to see if they have any videos, and they have no videos and never have. So, I mean, you don't know if that's true or not, but I just kind of take a lot of that with a grain of salt. Go on my experience. If that's a gun I'm interested in, purchase it, try it. If it's something that I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, I can't handle it," I get rid of it, or, pick up something else.
So just really quick, my thoughts on that as well. So you guys bring up really valid points. And I agree, but I also disagree slightly with that, because, we can compare it to cars, we compare it to computers, phones, whatever we want to do. But the big difference between all of that is that gun, whether it's Taurus or whatever it is, it's not a computer, it's not a car, it's not any of those items. It's an item that you're going to hopefully never have to use. But if you have to use it, it's going to be in a situation where your life is on the line. And, to take that gamble, I don't know if it's worth it. Yeah, it could have a lifetime warranty, but that doesn't do you any good when the moment you need it, it goes click and doesn't go bang, or it goes click and the slide shoots off of it. I mean, again, it's not bashing Taurus or any gun for that matter. It's just simply, yes, it is an affordable handgun. But then you have to ask, is it an affordable handgun that is reliable? And I don't know if I'd be willing to take that gamble. And yes, it may be difficult for somebody to come up with $50 more, but you know what? I think maybe you just have to take that gamble and wait to get those $50 more, to have something that, maybe it's going to fail. Sure. 1% of the time. But I think it's going to be one of those things that you have to really think about that. If you buy a Taurus with its track record, is it worth owning it when you really need to have it? And I just don't know if I'm there with a Taurus. I am there with a lot of other manufacturers that are throwing out some really quality guns, but just not a Taurus at this point. Again, my experience is zero, but I just don't think I would trust it with my life.
Yeah, and I mean, I've said it before on a chat. I had it was like the 92 knockoff Taurus. I had the 92, but I had a knockoff 92 Taurus, and I actually had problems and had to send it in twice. But that was the old Taurus. That was 20 years ago. So, I'm sure stuff has gotten a lot better, but, I mean, I understand what you're saying, because I don't know, I probably would try to save up some extra money, but there's people in situations where, you know, $50 might take a really long time and they have to have something right now. And that's where I would tell them, you know, maybe try to buy a used Smith & Wesson or a used Glock or a used something, you know, to get you by until you can afford something that you really want.
Buy a revolver that is probably price range, but maybe a little bit more reliable.
Well, and you know, I've had revolvers, and everybody says that revolvers are flawless. And I actually had this happen. I had a cylinder, you know, and it was an old revolver, but I had a cylinder that actually went out of time. And if you're familiar with that, you know, how the barrel, or of course the cylinder turns, it actually didn't turn. So, I mean, if I would have been able to pull it, you know, it would have shot the damn shell or the bullet right into the damn side of the barrel, not through the barrel. So stuff can go bad. You know, it was an old revolver, but you know, the newer ones, not so much. But you know, when people say, "Oh, I'll just buy an old used revolver," you know, if it's out of time, you can have some issues.
So let me ask you this, going kind of springboarding off that a little bit, or dovetailing off that. Somebody said dovetailing today. I thought that was interesting. Don't hear that very often, but so recently a video came out where an FN 509 tactical firing pin broke. And you know, I've got a couple of videos on that, and one of which is the 509 versus the Glock 19X. And more often than not, people are saying the FN 509, all about it. Now, I am not a believer in gauging anything off of one person's experience, ever. I want to study a lot of different people's experiences and reviews and various things, because one person with a sample of one, anything can happen, right? It's a mechanical device, no matter how great the firearm is, whatever. But that being said, what do you think when you hear about things like that? And he went into great detail and a lot of close-ups and that sort of thing. What were your thoughts when you saw that video?
Well, again, that was the sample of one that I saw, but you know, I come from the car world, and I've seen brand new super duper duper high end cars. They take them off the transport and the damn things won't work. And I've actually pulled one off of a transport that was brand spanking new, and the motor was locked up. Brand spanking new, $90,000 car, and the motor was seized. So, you know, I've seen it all. So I kind of look at it as anything can happen. So that's the way I look at it. Stuff breaks. You don't want it to, but it can.
17, what do you think?
You know, I agree. I mean, you know, what's not fallible? I mean, bottom line, what isn't going to break at some point? You know, obviously, I think it deals with, you know, and again, put it in perspective. I'm reading some of the comments, and everybody's like, "Well, I've seen 5,000 rounds," and you're right. You're absolutely right, guys. There is no such thing as perfection in any way, shape, or form. So to think that a gun,
hang on, Glock says that.
Taken, but you know, at the same time, to think something isn't going to fail is just not a rational way of thinking, because it's going to fail. It's just a matter of when. And I think where a lot of the frustration comes in is probably because you paid $1,000 for something and a damn striker spring breaks. Now, what's the background story? What was done to the gun? You know, was the gun dropped and he never said? I mean, who knows? You don't know any of this stuff. Yeah. So it's like, you know, basically, look, everything's going to fail at some point. And Baldy's saying knives don't fail, but they do break, Baldy.
They do. Yes, they do fail.
You know, so I would always say you take it with a grain of salt. You know, hopefully it doesn't happen to you. And if it does, take your gun apart, put a new striker spring in it, and it's good as new. Or a striker pin, whatever broke. So I don't know. I never get to the idea that every gun is perfect. I'm usually amazed when you shoot several thousand rounds through a gun and you never have a problem. To me, that's more something that I would focus on than when it actually breaks, because that says more to me than if it actually breaks, because I'm expecting something to break, because as people have mentioned, it's mechanical. It's going to break. What I don't expect is it for not to break after 10,000 rounds. And if it's still going, that's great. That's what you want. And unfortunately, we don't necessarily see a lot of that. We see more of like, oh, this gun broke, or this gun didn't shoot because it had mud, dirt, concrete, cement, and everything else to it. Well, happened. I mean, you're purposely trying to make something fail.
Yeah.
it failed. Wow. Wow. Eureka. You know, but if you're making a video where you have 2 million rounds or something and the damn thing is still bone stock, now that's something worth buying.
Well, and that's where I was going. You know, people that don't, they're like, they'll take a gun out, maybe clean it and oil it, and then they're like, you know what? I'm going to shoot this gun for 5,000 rounds without cleaning it. I'm going to carry it every day as my self-defense weapon. I'm just like, okay, you know, because you're not going to drive your car 20,000 miles and not change the oil.
Sure.
You know, something's going to break. So you're going to have some issues. So it's kind of like, okay, you've got a friction unit, you know, with no oil, you know, the slide could seize. I mean, there could be anything that could happen. And that's why I think, you know, part of your normal, even if you only clean your gun like every 1,000 rounds, you know, take it apart, you know, inspect it, look at the feed ramp, look at this, look at that. And I've said this before too. I had an old Smith & Wesson 9mm, and I actually, you know, was tearing it down, and the thing still shot. I tore it down, was doing an inspection on it, and on the feed ramp, there was actually a chunk, literally a chunk missing that broke off the feed ramp. On the whole side of the feed ramp was gone. And I was like, what the hell? So I contacted Smith, and they actually came straight up, and they were like, we had problems with the barrels, you know, send it in. They put a brand new barrel in it. I mean, they totally redid this gun. So that was, you know, shit, 25 or 30 years ago, it's forever ago. So, I mean, stuff can go bad. That's why I think with general inspection, just like general maintenance on your vehicle, you know, they can find preventative things or things that could potentially fail, like maybe a weak spring, or the trigger kind of feels weird and you're like, you know what, probably need to change that spring. You know, I just think inspecting your stuff is going to, you know, make it last a hell of a lot longer.
Right.
Hey, thanks, Brett, I appreciate it, man.
And you made a really good point, 17, going back to that video and other videos like it, you don't know the history of the firearm. I remember I told you guys a story. This was quite a long time ago about a CZ firing pin that broke because they decided to do some dry fire practice, and they sat and watched a movie and just click, 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 click through an entire movie. And they actually wore through one of the pins on the top of the slide. They just chewed through it because of so many dry fires. It's one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of dry firing, especially hammer fired guns of any sort. It's not as big of a deal with strikers, but I think they have a limit as well. And so you don't know the history. Is it the same thing? You know, a person sitting watching a couple movies, click, 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 click over and over and over and over again, because you really are putting stress on various mechanical parts. And over time, metal and all of those different parts, they're going to wear, and there's a potential for breakage and that sort of thing. And so when I hear some of these stories, sometimes I kind of wonder, I want to know the history. I want to know what all's been done. Have you been modding it? Have you been playing around with some of the different parts and taking it apart, perhaps when you shouldn't have, or whatever, or you don't necessarily know what you're doing, or there are bad parts in there? Have you overstressed the firearm? Have you not cleaned and maintained it? I mean, any number of things can happen. And when I hear or see videos, they're very interesting. I mean, I enjoy them certainly for entertainment, and it's something I put away in the back of my head. And if I start seeing over and over again, then maybe there's a conversation to have. But sample size of one thing, it's one experience. And I'll tell you what, within hours after that video was released, I saw a couple of comments on one of my video. Yeah, but the firing pin's going to break. Really? I mean, I don't know, maybe not, but sample size of one person, don't go off that. It's the same thing with those gauntlet tests. They're fantastically entertaining, but they don't really prove anything. They really don't. You should not buy a VP9 because it failed a test. Don't. If you enjoy the gun and they're good guns, get it, you know?
I totally agree. Totally agree. You know, I think whatever you're happy with and what works for you and however you shoot, by all means, get it, shoot it, love it, take care of it, you know, whatever you want to do. But for someone else to judge you and say, yeah, and that's what poor people use or whatever, I mean, and piss on that, you know, I don't judge anyone. It's not for me to do. Whatever you like works for you. Whatever I like works for me. So, but anything else fun and exciting coming up that you guys have on? We got about 10 minutes left.
17?
Well, I mean, at some point the M9 will get here. I'm hopefully going to see that within a week. That seems to be the average time frame now here is about 2.5 to 3 weeks. So I think right now it's going on about 2 weeks, maybe 2.5. And then obviously the Steyr when that gets here. And then the Steyr, I'll probably have to do every video I want to do in one day because they're going to probably want it back by the time I get it. I'm still waiting on call to reach out. They were talking to me for a while and, all this great stuff. And again, they've gone incognito, but whatever, it is what it is. Just got a couple new sights. I mean, the XS Big Dots, the new DXT2s in yellow, fantastic sights, by the way. I actually really, really dig the high vis front. I think they did a good job finally on getting rid of that white globe with the yellow and of course the orange, but I like the yellow better. It shows up a little bit better. Some mag guts, but we're working on that. There's a couple of little hang-ups here with the mag gut thing, but we're working on that to see what happens with that. And that's, I mean, honestly, guys, I don't really plan anything.
Yeah.
I just think of something and then I make the video.
Well, Romans is saying, give up on the call. Just no joke. Let it go.
Get an arsenal.
Yeah. Never. I will not.
What about you, KS?
The Beretta APX carry comes out this weekend, and the Wilson Combat EDC X9 versus Staccato P. It's already done. It's in the bag as well. It's finishing that up tonight. So that'll come out in 2 weeks, which is pretty cool. I'm excited for that. I'm testing a couple of belts. I'm not doing much with products these days. I'm doing very few product videos. I don't know if anybody's noticed or not, but I have been testing some belts for a couple months. I like them a lot, so I'm excited about that. Going to be working on the Rock Island 10 millimeters. There are the 2 from them, so I want to at least work on 1 so I can get that out to the world and back to them because I've been holding on to them, I feel like, for too long. And then I can start working with the Berettas, and I'm really excited about that. Very excited. Then the Dan Wessons as well. So I've been putting off some things for a while. So I'm finally starting to get through some stuff that I really wanted to get through. The Mossberg shooting is done as well, but I don't know when I'm going to release that. I might want to do a little bit more shooting with it. So yeah, lots of stuff going on. I'm pretty excited about that.
Cool. Yeah, I've got 2 items that have been out for about 2.5 weeks. So they should be getting close to being finished. So I'm excited about those. And I got a new mag loader in today. So I'll be doing a test on it. I've got a couple of other items here that I'll be testing. And of course the SRO, I'm really excited to put that on and kind of go between the Delta Point Pro and the SRO with a larger window. And, my thing is like with the RMR, when I'm shooting, and even with a Gorilla grip, you're going to get a little recoil. So you can see the dot come up out of the top of the window. So it leaves the window and then comes back down. The Delta Point Pro, it'll go to the top of the window, but I haven't gotten it to leave it yet. And even under really fast recoil. But with the SRO being a little bit bigger, I'm hoping that it'll just kind of go straight up and down, and pretty excited about testing it out. So I'll get that on a gun this weekend and go and shoot it probably on Friday afternoon or Saturday. And, pretty excited about testing it out. I know I've already had a lot of questions when I put the picture up on Instagram. A lot of people are like, what do you think about it? And I'm like, well, it's really cool. It's in a box, so hadn't had to play with it yet, but I've been kind of looking through it and stuff like that. But I'll get it locked down and get it dialed in and see what I think about it. So
cool.
Nice.
But yeah, anything that's coming up. I mean, I know that, and this is weird because it should have already been out. And I know on the chat, because I watched your chat, because I was out, but I did watch it. And the gun that I was talking about was the Nemo Arms Monarch. I know that y'all finally found out. Somebody said it, but that Nemo was supposed to have already been out. So I'm wondering why we haven't heard anything else about it. It's just kind of, I don't even see pictures on it anymore from Nemo. So I'm just like, what the hell happened to that? Did it just go away, or have they forgotten about it, or, did they have an issue with it? I'm just curious if anybody's heard anything on that, because I haven't heard a word.
No, I haven't heard anything. I mean, they still have it up on their website.
Yeah, but I mean, they were like doing all these sneak pictures saying coming soon. And, I talked to the Nemo guy and he was like, oh yeah, it'll be out. And that was last month when they were going to release it. So here we are into this month. So I don't know what's going on with it, but I was excited about it, but now all of a sudden it's just kind of gone away. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm focused on the 365 XL and the X5 Legion. I'll be doing both of those because I'm a fan of the X5. I like the X5 platform, and I've wanted to get back into one. I was actually really eyeing a Coyote one, but now that they've got this Legion that's 8 ounces heavier, that will be pretty cool. So I'm stoked for that. So they're both on order. Hopefully we'll see them at the end of July, I hope, but they're known for delaying things a little bit, so that might be bleed into September. You never know, but I'm excited for those. Those are the only ones on the map, and then the SIG P210. So that's 3 SIGs. Yikes! So I'll have to stop doing SIGs for a while. But I'm excited for those. That XL, I'm very excited to try that and see what it's like, and compare it with the experience from the 48 and the Shield 4-inch.
Yeah. LZUSA is asking, anyone out there like CMMG products? You can receive a 10% discount off an order. Just use Father's Day coupon code, not a tie. Their AR triggers are pretty nice. I do not like their Glock triggers at all, but I do like their AR triggers. Do y'all have any experience with them?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, I've got 2 of their AR triggers, and they're pretty nice triggers for ARs.
I want their Banshee. That Banshee is sweet.
Yeah, that thing is sweet. Yes, but man, I really want a Q. I like the Q Fix, and all those. I think they're pretty damn awesome too. But they're not cheap, but they're sweet rifles. Does Taurus take Glock mags?
No, not unless you stuff them in and break them.
Yeah, I think if you got a bigger hammer.
By the way, I'm getting flack for the amount of SIGs, and I totally agree. I'm giving myself trouble too, but I'm really interested in all 3 of those, and I feature guns that I'm interested in. Yeah. So, and I drag everybody along for the ride if they want to participate. So, I will trust me. I'll spread them out. Yeah. So it won't be overload, I hope.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. What I've always, just for me, I buy guns that I want to keep. That I just kind of buy what I like and go from there. But damn, you can get 10% off the Banshee also. Shit.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I'm overloaded as it is, but that would be pretty darn cool. That would.
Yes, I did hear about the Sugar Weasel too, the Q Sugar Weasel. And Q has some sweet stuff. I got to meet him at NRA, and Kevin's pretty damn cool. The guy who owns Q. So, but yeah, he makes some sweet stuff. And his stuff is really highly engineered too. It's just not like off the rack stuff that you can just go and buy.
17, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I want to just give a plug if I could in the last waning moments here. So just so you guys know, once again, Lock Grips has done a fantastic job on making some custom grips. I did pay for these, but again, awesome job. If you guys need some grips for your guns, Lock Grips to me are still the best. So you can see the Maltese Cross on one side, and of course the Star of Life on the other. Yeah. Back to my past life, but fantastic job, man. I mean, I can't say it enough. They're just so easy to work with. They do just about anything you want them to do for some custom grips, and it's worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah,
that looks really good.
Yeah, they did a nice job, man. Really.
Yeah,
nice.
They do sweet stuff, and it's cool. Every once in a while, especially on Instagram, they'll throw up some stuff that, I'm just like, wow, those are cool. Never.
They could get any better. They get better.
Yeah, they do a great job.
Yep,
definitely know what they're doing there. But okay, so who is next week?
I think it might be me. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay,
I guess I don't know. We'll find out.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. All right. Well, we appreciate everyone. I definitely want to say it. We appreciate everyone out there, and I appreciate you guys. Doing a great job while I was out. But the family means a big thing to us. We really appreciate y'all coming on and spending your Wednesday nights with us. Really means a lot. And y'all have any final thoughts?
I'm hungry.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Freaking starving. Same thing. Thanks for joining us every Wednesday. Spread the word. I still say this. I still believe we have the best three guys chat on YouTube when it comes to gun content.
I think so too. And I think we have the best audience without question. You guys are all amazing as always for hanging out with us. It would be fun to continue to see it grow, but it really doesn't matter. We have a great time together, and there is never a lack of conversation. So we appreciate every single one of you guys.
Yes, we do. Well, thank y'all so much. Y'all have a great night. Carry on and be safe out there.
See ya.
See you guys,
everyone. Bye.